Good Monday morning, West Georgia. It is now 8:30. This is the Community Voice program here on Newstalk 1330, FM 106.3, streaming live online at newstalk1330.com. And I'm your host this morning, Colin Worthington. Our guest this morning is one of two candidates running for the Carroll County Board of Education District 6 seat. He wants to challenge Bart Cater, who has been in that seat, I believe, the last 2 decades. I believe 20 years will be, I think December will mark 20 years for Bart Cater in that seat. But the gentleman this morning, hope to introduce you to him and hope to be able to share a lot of information about him so you can make an informed decision come Election Day, which is, at this point, May the 19th. The last day to register for this race would be April the 20th. That's for all races on that May 19th ballot, so if you haven't registered to vote yet, I'm assuming you're able to go out there and take care of that. Perhaps you can make a request to the elections office to check out that process at this point. Early voting at this point begins April the 27th, runs through May the 15th, and I know all active voters, they'll receive an item in the mail allowing them to request an absentee ballot. They'll be sent back that form, and once you fill out that form, you send it to the elections office, and then they'll send you the ballot. And hopefully this will encourage more people to go out and vote this Election Day. Again, May the 19th. This morning we are talking about that District 6 race on the Carroll County Board of Education, and our guest is Mr. David Smith out of Bowden. David, good morning.
Good morning, sir. How are you?
I'm doing fine, thank you. Before we get into an introduction, I'll kind of give away a little bit about your background. You do have a military background. I wonder how much training, what you went through in the military to deal with a similar situation we're going through with the COVID-19 right now.
There's really nothing you do contingency-wise to plan for something like this. You try to game out all the scenarios that could occur, but, you do a lot of NBC training, nuclear, biological, and chemical training on the ships when you're deployed, but nothing to this extent that addresses a worldwide pandemic. You just can't plan for something like that.
What are you doing right now to occupy your time as we're in the shelter-in-place order?
Colin, we have a little farm over here in Bowden, and every day we wake up and we have chores to do. So we live right in the middle of a cow pasture. We have fences to mend. We have cows to tend to vaccinate and castrate, and lots of property to clean up all the time. So we have plenty to keep us busy.
First use of the word castrate on Monday morning radio this morning comes up right after 8:30.
Sorry, that's just what you do on a farm.
That's it. No, I'm sure Carroll County's used to hearing it. 8:33 right now. Go ahead and give us your resume then. Talk a little bit about your background, getting you up to this point in Bowden,
yes,
Georgia.
Sir, thank you. I want to go back to what you were talking about a while ago. You can do online registration through the website for the Board of Elections, okay?
Good.
If you've got a driver's license and you're not registered to vote, you can go in and follow the links, and within just a few minutes, you can complete that registration.
Good deal.
So all those who aren't registered, that was a good time to do that. I was born in a little town in South Carolina called Anderson. If you've ever seen the movie Radio, you kind of know a little bit about the history of our hometown. We were never mean to radio like they show in the movie. They had to put some drama in there to make this story. But radio became the heart and soul of that little town, and I'm proud to have come from there. My dad's folks were, growing up, were sharecroppers. They lived on a little farm in Anderson, a rural part of the county. When my grandfather died, the boys, my grandmother and one sister moved to town. The boys went to work there, and my mother's folks are from the mountains of North Carolina, western North Carolina. When I was born, we were 2 years old, and we moved back to that farm that my dad had worked there as a sharecropper. We lived in one of the tenant houses. So I come from very humble beginnings. Early on, I learned to work on the farm. The owner and his wife were born in 1901 and 1900, respectively. And every day after school, when I was about 8 years old, starting then, they would pick me up in this old World War II Willis Jeep, and we would feed cows. We fed about 60 cows at the big pasture and another 40 there at the house. So I come from a long line of a long background of feeding cows and picking up rocks in the pasture and learning my multiplication tables, because Miss Mary Lee whose husband and she owned the farm, had been a school teacher. So school teachers early on were important to my life and my learning. After high school, we had this thing called the draft. A lot of you are much too young to remember that, but my lottery number was 48, and I was looking to serve Uncle Sam overseas, except I had taken Navy Junior ROTC in high school, and I knew a little bit about the Navy, and I didn't see a lot of Navy guys that were in country in Vietnam. And it scared me every night watching the news and seeing Marines and soldiers come back in body bags. So I knew I didn't want to go to Vietnam. So I went down to my recruiter's office and told them that I think I want to join the Navy. That was in 1972, and I didn't know if I was going to like it or not. So after 30 years, I got out. I did things. I saw things that a little farm boy growing up in the sticks of South Carolina could only imagine, could never have imagined. In my first tour, my first part of the Navy, I was an air crewman flying in patrol aircraft. They were big 4-engine aircraft that were too big to land on aircraft carriers. But we tracked Russian submarines, we tracked surface ships, and we tracked a lot of combatants, Soviet combatants. I made 3 deployments to the North Atlantic, flying out of Iceland, and I don't know how many Russian submarines we tracked. It must have been, 60 all total in that realm. And I saw a lot of Europe that I could only read about in storybooks. I spent time in Copenhagen, in Norway, in Amsterdam, in England. It was just like a dream come true for a young kid out of high school to join the military early on. We also deployed to Sicily. I made 2 deployments to Sicily in the squadron, and we saw a lot of different activities. Our main goal in the Mediterranean was to protect the aircraft carriers. So we were looking out for those attack submarines, and so from those missile submarines who could destroy our aircraft carriers. That was very rewarding. I saw a lot of parts of the world I'd never seen before. I went to Athens, Naples a few times, in and out of Spain. We went into Suda Crete for deployment, or for detachments rather, and I learned a lot about that part of the world. Again, it was just something you could never imagine, growing up in a little farm town there. I did that for a number of years, and then went ashore, finally, after 5 deployments. And I stayed in that first squadron for 7.5 years, which is way too long to stay in one place. But I loved it. It was so much fun, and there was a pride, or a patriotism, I guess, by doing your part in the Cold War. Things you could never talk to your friends about, things that your schoolmates, could never relate to, but there was this service part of that I guess patriotism, for lack of another word, but I really got a sense of doing something good for the country and doing that.
David Smith is challenging Bart Cater for the District 6 seat on the Carroll County Board of Education. David's our guest on this morning's Community Voice program. Time right now is 8:39. David, how did you get to Bowden?
I first came here in the late 60s to Carroll County. I was working in the summertime for a little engineering company out of Gainesville, Georgia. And they had the engineering contract to do this thing called Treasure Lake. And we came and we did the topographic survey, and then we did the survey work to install the dam, and then we did the oversight to make sure the dam was built correctly. When we retired from the Navy, the wife and I wanted to place a little farm, and we started looking around for a place to live and in that little farm, and we found it over here in West Georgia. And we could not have picked a better place for us. People were really nice to us when we first got here. Tommy Messer got us involved in the church, in the community. Nelda Roop got me in the Bridge Club. They got my wife into the Red Hat. They had a little investment club over here that they got my wife, Pam, to join, and they made her the president, which is really hard for an introvert to go out and be the president of something like that. We got involved in the Kiwanis Club. We helped start that here in Bowden. As I said, we're active in the church, the Bowden Baptist Church. I volunteer in the nursery on Tuesday nights, and they even let me go over and cut grass once a month in the summertime. We just love our little community over here. We could not have picked a better place for us to come and retire to.
Well, as a retired individual, what's motivating you to, not necessarily coming out of retirement, but is an active role in the community to become a board member?
It is a very active role. We love the high school. We love the kids. We are involved in a lot of their activities. We go to all the girls' basketball and softball games. We watch the baseball. We are season ticket holders for the football games. Starting the Kiwanis Club, we got a key club in the high school. We were working to get a builders club at the middle school, and the elementary school now has come across and said that they want a club in their school too. So about a month ago now, my friend Lanny Smith, who lives down the hill and over the creek from us, came to me and said, "I think you ought to run for the school board." And I said, "Lanny, I think you ought to run for the school board." Lanny's got 2 little children. He runs a company over here with about 80 employees, and he just doesn't have the time. He coaches his kids' teams. And so I thought about it, Pam and I, for a week or so. We prayed about it. I went down to the elections board and gave him my $50 and said, "I want to be a candidate for the school board." So here we are. It's just that next level of service, in the community that I think we need to do. We are involved in a lot of other things. Pam and I have started 2 scholarships for the graduating seniors that are 4-year scholarships, and we'll do 2 of those per year.
What are the details of the requirements for those scholarships?
Well, we wanted kids whose parents or who are first generation to go to college. We wanted teamwork. We wanted kids. One of the scholarships goes to a kid who played sports in high school, and basically that's it. We don't ask anything else. We do ask that they keep a certain average in college to keep getting the scholarships. I think it's like a B average, and those can work for vocational as well as a 4-year college.
David Smith is our guest on this morning's Community Voice program. He's challenging Bart Cater, the incumbent, for the District 6 seat on the Carroll County Board of Education. Cater has held that seat for the last 20 years. It'll be this December. Time right now is 8:44. We'll take our first break from this morning's program and come back and talk more with David Smith, candidate for Carroll County School Board District 6. After this break, the program brought to you by Tanner Health System and Oak Mountain Academy here on Newstalk 1330, FM 106.3.
At Oak Mountain Academy, our daily schedule includes convocation, prayer, and the Pledge of Allegiance. By doing so, we build a family-like community where all students grow and flourish and personal faith is encouraged. Through community service and a historical approach to biblical study, our students are taught the value of the warrior way, honesty, respect, and responsibility. Oak Mountain Academy, we are a family creating legacies. To learn more, visit oakmountain.us.
At Tanner, our heroes are fighting the COVID-19 virus around the clock, but you have an important job too, and it's urgent. Stay home.
We all must work together to stop the spread of the COVID-19 virus.
Staying home is the only way to avoid exposing your loved ones to this virus.
Each time you leave your home, you risk exposing yourself and spreading the virus to others in our community and in your home.
Do your part so we can continue to do ours. Stay home.
It can save the life of someone you love.
Community Voice brought to you by Tanner Health System, Oak Mountain Academy here on Newstalk 1330, FM 106.3. Time right now is exactly 8:45. I'm your host, Colin Worthington. Our guest this morning is Mr. David Smith. He's a candidate for the Carroll County Board of Education. the District 6 seat. And do appreciate being able to talk to you this morning, David. Appreciate you accommodating us over the telephone today. Is this obviously not what you expected when you thought about campaigning initially, having to do it all over telephone or social media, huh?
No, sir, this is not it. I expect to go out and knock on doors and shake hands, and this is quite different. This is I've done a lot of hard things in my life, but this is probably the hardest one, is to run a campaign this way.
Let me try and talk about some of the roles as a Board of Education member. Do you have an experience, or what experience do you have, maybe working with a complicated budget?
My second phase to my career in the Navy was to become an intel officer. And I did a few tours, active duty doing that. And then I did my tour in the Pentagon, where I worked in N-20. You always fight to go to the Pentagon. You don't really want to go there. And one of the happiest days in your career is when you leave the Pentagon. But it was very insightful. We worked with the Navy intel budget, which was hundreds of millions of dollars. We were the sponsor for several intelligence commands, all the Navy intel. And so we did that, dividing the money out between the commands toward the priority issues. And a lot of those are dictated to you by the general staff or the Navy staff. But that was quite an undertaking. My master's degree is from the Naval Postgraduate School in Monterey in Information Technology Management. So I worked at the Office of Naval Intelligence, running their IT contract. That contract was worth probably $250 million over a series of years, and I only managed it for about 4 years. But again, it's running resources and making sure that the work gets done on time and on budget. Additionally, at ONI, my last job there was being the resource sponsor for the facilities directorate. And under facilities, you had the police officers, you had the maintenance of the grounds itself, and all those miscellaneous things that nobody else wants to do, but that you have to do to keep the building up and running. We probably had about, $10 million a year working toward facilities, sometimes more if we had renovation work to do. But you have to make sure that all of your needs are met, that you have the money available and the contracts are in place to get the job done. I think a lot of being on the school board is a lot like being a resource manager. You've got to make sure the teachers have the ample tools to do the work, that they stay trained. You have to have the facilities. You have to have the football fields, the classrooms. All that stuff has to be in place in order for things to work.
David Smith's a candidate for Carroll County Board of Education, District 6. It's primarily the Bowden cluster. Does any of Mount Zion spill over into that at all, or is it all the Bowden cluster?
No, sir, just those three schools, Bowden Elementary, Bowden Middle School, and Bowden High School. And everybody has Red Devil in their blood over here.
When you're determining the budget, part of the process is determining a millage rate as well. That'll affect how much revenue is generated for the coming year. What would be your personal process in determining whether a millage rate increase would be necessary? You won't, maybe not this year. You wouldn't have to deal with that, and this will be a tougher budget to deal with in this current year. But for the next year, what kind of process would you work through to determine whether or not a millage rate increase would be necessary or to lower the millage rate?
I think you need to start from the bottom and see what your requirements are, and then take a look at your total requirements versus the money that you have coming in. The SPLOSH program is a great way to offset some of that millage or tax on our property here, and I am a wholeheartedly supporter of that tax. I can't think of a better way for the government to get involved than to do something like this. We have lies and lies in the past of lottery promises that are going to go to education, but somehow that money never makes it. So this money goes directly to the schools to help them fund their infrastructure requirements, and that way it helps to keep down the millage. Having said that, these are very strange times, and you're not going to see as much business, as much revenue turnover in the county. So I'm afraid to say it, but we're going to have to increase the millage rate to meet those ongoing requirements to fund personnel and some of those other issues.
David Smith's a candidate for Carroll County School Board, District 6. Time right now is 8:50. About 9 more minutes left in this program. You do suggest you're a supporter of the East Blost. Are you in favor of bonding some projects? When those proposals are put out to us at the polls at times, we've seen where some projects are bonded, which means there's a potential to spend a lot of money, millions of dollars in interest payments. Are you in favor? Do you support the bonding suggestion, or do you suggest that we pay as we go, as that money's collected?
You know, I've never lived beyond my means. When I finally did get a mortgage, when I settled down to a place and bought a house, I paid it off just as soon as I can. I think when you do bonds, you're trying to leverage your future. And I don't think that's a good idea. I like pay as you go. A lot of other people don't like that, but you know, I was very conservative in my view about that. I think you have to live within your means, and you don't mortgage your future for a good time today. I'm basically an ant in the ant and the grasshopper story.
Mm-hmm. You would begin term, should you win this election, you'd begin your term in 2021. 4-year period after that, it's a good chance that you'd have the opportunity to vote on a new superintendent as a board education person. I guess what are some of the qualities that you would look for? What are questions, actually? What are some questions that you would ask a candidate for a Carroll County school superintendent?
I want to know his leadership. I want to know what leadership positions he's held. I want to know his leadership style. I want to know his philosophy on funding, on taking care of the resources, on taking care of people. The people, our teachers, our principals, our lunch ladies, bus drivers and nurses, counselors, those are the most important things that we have here in our school system. And I want to know how he's going to take care of those.
David Smith is our guest on this morning's Community Voice program. Time right now is 8:53. We'll take our final break and come back and wrap up our conversation with Carroll County Board of Education District 6 candidate David Smith. More after this.
At Tanner, our heroes are fighting the COVID-19 virus around the clock, but you have an important job too, and it's urgent. Stay home.
We all must work together to stop the spread of the COVID-19 virus.
Staying home is the only way to avoid exposing your loved ones to this virus.
Each time you leave your home, you risk exposing yourself and spreading the virus to others in our community and in your home.
Do your part so we can continue to do ours. Stay home.
It can save the life of someone you love.
At Oak Mountain Academy, our academic excellence shines through innovation and a personalized educational experience. Our pre-K 3 through 12th grade environment offers a family-oriented atmosphere. We are an independent school with faith-based values and an academy honor code. Our academic standards prepare our students for college and beyond. I'm Patrick Duran, headmaster, inviting you to visit us on the mountain or at oakmountain.us. Come see how our warriors are creating legacies.
8:54, and welcome back to the WLBB Community Voice program here on Newstalk 1330 FM 106.3. Also streaming live online at newstalk1330.com. I am your host, Colin Worthington. Remind you at the conclusion of this program, the entire audio version will be posted on the newstalk1330.com website. And then later on in the morning, we're going to get a fine picture of David Smith, our guest this morning, and post it up on Facebook and share the entire interview that way. And right now we'll join David again with about 5.5 minutes left in the program. You unfortunately haven't had that opportunity to be face-to-face with people during this campaign. But hey, if I say we're able to do it in 2 or 3 weeks before the campaign, we bump into you at the grocery store, and I say, David, why am I going to pick you over a gentleman who's been in this seat for the last 20 years and never really had much of a challenge when it comes to this? Why should we pick you at the polls?
Well, I've got 4 talking points here I want to discuss real quickly, but first I'd like to give a shout out to the teachers and the lunch ladies and the bus drivers who are doing a great job right now during this strange time of continuing education of the kids and keeping them fed. My first issue is safety. I think I think we need resource officers in every school. I don't know why Bowden has 2 schools, the only 2 schools in the district that don't have resource officers, in the high school and the elementary school. I think we're going to have an issue with nurses in the next couple of years. With nurses retiring, we should have nurses available to all the kids in all the schools, and not just on an ad hoc basis when they need them. That's the first issue. The other issue is I think we need to get all graduates, all high school graduates, ready for the next phase in their life, whether they're going to college, whether they're going to vocational school, or if they're going to join the workforce. We need more counselors in schools, I think, and I think we need a cadre of professionals that kids can rely on. If they're thinking about going in the medical field, we should have doctors and nurses available for them to go talk to see what it's like, to see what the requirements are. Same for engineers. If you want to be an engineer, if you want to be a lineman, if you want to be a mechanic, you should be able to go and talk to the mechanics. I don't know that counselors can provide that, but I think we could reach out to the community to find people who are willing to help out in that regard. I'm not for standardized testing, but I do really appreciate what the PASS program does for the kids in the school. We've been very active supporters of the program here. My wife gives a little money every year, and we make sure that the kids at the high school here have food. And then I want to look at different ways to do things. One of the things we're charged with as elected officials is to be good stewards of the money. I want to make sure that we're doing things right when we do contracting and when we decide what programs we're going to support. I'm not so sure that Bowden High School needs a new facade on the front of the school to make it look like the old college that was here, 60 or 70 years ago, when kids have a problem with vermin infestation, being mice or ants or whatever. I think we have better things to look at besides the front of the school. And finally, going into the Columbia, South Carolina, where I graduated, there was a sign that said academics and athletics. I think that's a good idea. I think it's a wonderful idea. But I would add athletics, art. Let me rephrase that. Academics, arts, and athletics in that order. Athletics teaches teamwork, devotion, dedication, and skills that are going to be with you your whole life. The arts gives you an appreciation for different things in life besides the sciences, music, written language, just wonderful things. And of course, academics comes first. You have to be able to study to get you prepared for that next venture in life, no matter where life takes you.
David Smith is a candidate for Carroll County School Board District 6, and I appreciate talking to you this morning, sir. It's good to hear from you, and thank you for your service as well.
Thank you, Mr. Warrington. Thank you for this time. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. Look forward to talking to you again. Again, appreciate you tuning in this morning to the Community Voice program brought to you by Tanner Health System and Oak Mountain Academy, where our guest was David Smith. He's a candidate for Carroll County School Board of Education District 6. That seat, the incumbent, currently held by Mark Cater, who's actually been in that role for the last 20 years. But seeking re-election this year. Election day is May the 19th. Last day to register for this race and any race on the May 19th ballot is April the 20th. And as David explained, you can do that online, so I encourage you to check that out. Early voting begins April 27th, and that'll last through May the 15th. If should anything change to do with Election Day, we'll be sure and let you know on all the fine Grady Communications radio stations. Right now it is 8:59. If you missed any of this program, I do encourage you to visit the Newstalk1330.com website. I'll post the entire audio podcast up there here shortly. And then be sure and visit the Newstalk 1330 WLBB Facebook page. We'll share the program there as well with a picture of David. We should have that up by noon today. Stay tuned now for national headlines, followed by your local news, and then Glenn Beck is on the air, Rush Limbaugh, and Sean Hannity here on Newstalk 1330 FM 106.3. As Steve Graddick would say, go out and make it a great day, Carrollton, Georgia.